Jackson knows who Mac McClung is. We knew he was going to win.
I knew who he was.
Get to Jackson Hewitt for your biggest refund, guaranteed.
But
we'll take it.
Let's do the high score.
Here we go.
Time for Arizona's only local sports gambling radio show. Take the Points. Powered by the Sportsbook at CAZ Sports Bar in Casino, Arizona. Your home for uncensored sports betting opinions, analysis, and advice. The guys have you covered for all the games. Now, take the Points on Sports 910 and the iHeartRadio app.
Good Saturday morning to you. Mike Gross, Jackson Groff out here at the CAZ Sports Bar, Casino, Arizona. We are here till 1 o'clock. We gave Bauer the day off today. Bauer is on assignment.
It's good to have you back, Gross. The legend himself.
It's good to be back, but I enjoyed the week off. It's good to have a little bit of free time. It was a 3-day weekend last weekend. I had to take full advantage of it. But good to be back. Good to be here at the CAZ Sports Bar. And you, my friend, are bucking for a promotion around here. I get here ready to help set up, and usually you've got that taken care of, so don't worry about that. I'm gonna go, I'll order breakfast. You're like, I already ordered breakfast. Like, you had it knocked this morning. Like, I just came in and sat down, and here we are.
It's like Batman and Robin.
There we go. But the breakfast sandwich,
exactly.
Oh man,
it's so good.
Back in studio is our national champion, Ryan Sirk. Always good to have him along as well. But we're taking up to 1 o'clock. Plenty to get to today, and we are in full basketball mode, Jackson Groff, here at the CAZ Sports Bar. We walk in, the big screens all fired up, and virtually all of them have either the NBA or college basketball on. I think one TV over there on the side has golf. But other than that, it is basketball season as we're pointing towards the NBA postseason as well as March Madness, and this is your place for it. You can come in, you get great food and drink specials, got a wonderful wait staff here that takes great care of you. And they've got the sports book there on the far end of the CAZ Sports Bar. We went and picked up our sheets, got to see all the action. Plenty of people in here watching games with their tickets in hand. And if you know what you're doing, and you don't need the help of the guys at the sports book, they've got the self-service kiosk inside CAZ Sports Bar, as well as a couple of them right outside as you enter in. So this is your place. You can come out. Like I said, great food and drink specials. Jackson and I recommend the breakfast sandwich. But they got a great menu if you don't want that. And then, like I said, the sports book there and these great TVs. Come on out, watch some games, hang out with us. We're here till 1 o'clock today. Coming up at 12:30, our good friend Marco D'Angelo from WagerTalk.com. Marco, he was passing the knowledge last week about how to look at college basketball when you're looking at rankings and road teams, and that's what we love about Marco. You can find him on Twitter at Marco in Vegas. The website, WagerTalk.com. But Marco will be by at 12:30. It's great. Usually we end our time with Marco around the end of football season. But Marco and the folks at Wager Talk, they got all the sports covered. So Marco has agreed to hang out with us through basketball season. And the other thing you will learn about Marco, Jackson, is that he's a big horse guy. And when they've got the Triple Crown races, we will actually have Marco back for that.
I'm excited to talk to him about that. He's the
that's
number one
passion.
He's the number one handicapper in college hoops and general hoops. I believe his profit is around $11,000. I believe it was like $100 per unit. So obviously he's spending more money, but the profit he's making, and I believe he went 2-0 last week right off the bat when we started talking about college basketball. So Marco D'Angelo, a man of many talents for sure.
Absolutely. So he'll be by at 12:30. Jeff Hood's out, best deal in town, bestdealaz.com. He'll join us at 11:45 or so. We'll get his picks for the week. Check in with Jeff, see what kind of specials he's got going on. Maybe post-Super Bowl specials if you need to upgrade your home entertainment setup. Easy for me to say. You were asking me a question, though. Tell our listeners, there was a high-scoring NBA game this week that kind of caught your attention.
Yeah, so it was last night. The Sacramento Kings, who are number 3 in the West, faced the number 5 Clippers. These are two teams that are vying to move up in the rankings when it comes to the standings, obviously, for the Western Conference. The Clippers, with Russell Westbrook coming back. The Kings, they got Sabonis. They got De'Aaron Fox. They had Malik Monk last night. Malik Monk, 45 points off the bench. Well, this was a new record for the second highest scoring NBA game ever. It was 176-175. The Sacramento Kings defeated the Los Angeles Clippers in double overtime. The Kings attempted more than 100 field goals. Yes, 100 field goals. And both teams shot more than 43 pointers each. Now, Gross, what was the highest scoring game of all time that was played in the NBA?
Detroit Pistons and the Denver Nuggets.
Okay, correct.
They played in December of 1983.
Yep.
180-something to 180-something. 184 to 186, maybe?
Wow. Dead on the money. This is why Mike Gross is a legend. 186 to 184. Who won that game?
Detroit Pistons won it in double overtime. And I'm going to tell you what, Jackson, the reason I know that is I was front and center in the old McNichol Sports Arena in Denver. I saw that game live and in person, and that was kind of the beginning of the bad boys. That's Isaiah Thomas just started with the Pistons at that point. They didn't have all the pieces together yet. It was I want to say it was Kelly Tripucka was on that team. Obviously Isaiah Thomas. On the other side, you had Doug Moe and those Denver Nuggets that used to like to run up and down the court. And they had a guy from UCLA by the name of Kiki Vandeweghe. They had Alex English, Dan Issel. That was a great game. I was supposed to be studying for finals because that was December of 83, and I know it was very close to exams. And a buddy of mine's like, hey, I got tickets to the Pistons-Nuggets game tonight. You want to go? I'm like, yeah, I'll study when I get home. Double overtime, though. Great game, but I love it. Like, I get it, and I'm Pistons won a lot of championships after that. They did it with defense. They weren't scoring 180 points a night. But I think fans like games like that every now and again, just to get a little offense, get up and down. But when it counts for, as opposed to what we saw recently in the All-Star game, right? But shattered that over-under.
Yeah, there must have been more defense back in the day because it was 3 overtimes when they reached that score. And last night's game was only 2.
Was it 3? It
was 3 overtimes, yeah.
Right,
for the Pistons.
As you get older, that was like 35 years ago. So you'll forgive me if I get
I think it was like 40, actually.
Oh,
Because
come on, Jackson.
1983
Stop it,
with 2023.
Stop. It was a long time ago, but good to see. Hey, speaking of basketball, we're going to get into this a lot, but the bracket's starting to take shape. We got Joe Lenardi, Jerry Palm, some of those experts that are actually really good at plugging in the numbers as they look and see who's in, who's out, field of 68. And Pac-12 has some work to do based on what we're seeing from both those experts, relative to, say, the Big Ten. Like you were looking at the numbers and you're like, how many Big Tens are getting in this tournament this year? And here's the thing for the Pac-12, and a lot of attention on this now is revenue in college sports. How do you get it from TV and other sources? A big part of it for college basketball are those shares that you get. And it's a combination of the more teams you get into the tournament, and as your teams advance through the tournament, that means money. And when the Big Ten's getting 7, 8, 9 teams into the tournament and the Pac-12 is struggling to get 3, maybe 4, you're working from a deficit right there.
Yeah, 100%. And for those out there, maybe Arizona, UCLA fans, you are in the tournament. No need to worry. We'll see where you rank when the time comes. But teams like ASU, maybe a Washington State, if they get hot in the Pac-12 tournament, could possibly make a run. But USC is the number 1 team that we've seen in brackets that are either on the bubble, whether it's the first 4 teams in, first 4 teams out, or the next 4 out. So it'll be interesting to see. That's what I love about college basketball is the conference tournament is what matters. You could lose every single game of the regular season, but if you win that tournament or make a great impression, obviously if you lost every single game and you made a good impression of the tournament, it would be a little different. But what I'm saying is that tournament plays a lot in the committee when it comes to who are those teams coming into the tournament. And you said earlier that the at-large teams, the teams that are the bigger dogs, I guess, that are going to slip in there, the lowest seed they can make is 11, I believe is what you said.
That's where you put the final at-large teams on that 11 line, absolutely.
So teams like, Kentucky, teams like North Carolina, I'm interested to see because North Carolina, Michigan State, Michigan, those are some like big dog teams, powerhouses in the college basketball ranks. And those are some teams that have had some rough regular season play. But like we've seen with Syracuse recently, like we've seen with all these teams, they make a run in the tournament because they've been there before. They have the coaching stack to back it up in March Madness.
Well, we talked about that. And what do you look at if you're looking at it from a wagering standpoint, trying to pick favorites? And, when you talk about teams that maybe have to turn it on and play their way into the tournament, do they get on a hot streak and you want to kind of ride that with the team? right? So you got a team right now that might be on the outside looking in. Maybe they put together a couple nice wins as the regular season ends and then ride a hot streak through a tournament in their respective conferences. Maybe not outright win the conference tournament, but do enough to get in. And then does that translate into winning in the NCAA tournament in those early games? And so that's the thing that you've got to figure out. As opposed to a team, one of the teams that Joe Lunardi has on his bubble is the University of New Mexico. University of New Mexico, and I forget when they lost their first game, but they were one of the last undefeated teams in the country this year. They ran through November, December unblemished, and then once they jumped into Mountain West play, they started to lose some games. They had an ugly losing streak there in that conference. They still are right on that bubble, but this is a team that's been falling and not playing well down the stretch. You might stay away from that, even if they get lucky enough to find their way into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, so January 3rd was their first loss at Fresno State. Then they lost to UNLV, and then they had a couple losses, but they lost, I believe it was 4 straight. They've lost 5 of their last 6 games. They got a huge one tonight against 22 San Diego State if they want to get back into contention.
UNM has a couple of Arizona kids on it too. I was over in Albuquerque and pulled into. I was just grabbing dinner, and I was like, "Well, that's Jalen House. He's from Arizona."
I forgot about it.
Interesting to watch where the Arizona kids end up. And the night I was there, it was because it's Richard Pitino is the head coach there, and his dad, of course, Rick Pitino, brought his Iona team into town.
Yeah,
like really, you look at these games, it's like it's hard to schedule non-conference games, and it's kind of cool that Rick Pitino did that for his son, and I imagine hard for Richard to say, it's dad coming in, but you got to take it like a regular game. I believe UNM beat them by double digits, but I love those cool side stories in college basketball. Hey, looking at the games locally today, and we're going to get into the U of A ASU game a little bit later on, but they have the rematch, part 2, down in Tucson this afternoon. It's a noon tip-off, so you want to pay attention to that one coming up quickly. Arizona is a 12-point favorite over the Devils, and the over-under on that one, Jackson sits at 154 even. And, you look at this, and I think Manuch on the Friday show called for an upset. Here's my thing, and I've said this to you and Bauer a couple times about this Arizona Wildcats team, supremely talented. You look at this roster, they're going to get cleaned out again this year by the NBA draft, but then they'll just replenish it again. That's what they're doing down there. But this is a team that loses its focus really easily in games that they shouldn't. How do you lose to Washington State if you're this team? How do you lose at Stanford? You look at I believe they're at 4 losses right now in the conference. None of them are games they should have lost. They lost them. I'm not making excuses. But on paper, they shouldn't have lost those games. I have a hard time thinking that ASU is a game that they take lightly. This is the in-state rival. There's a lot of trash talk. This is your rival. You don't get bored like you do when you go to Pullman, Washington, and find yourself in a double-digit deficit in the first half against a team that has no business beating you. I would be shocked if Arizona lost this game. Now, do they play within that 12-point margin where the line is set? That's something to discuss, and we'll get into that later. And also locally, we've got Northern Arizona playing out the string today. I think they got out of a very snowy Flagstaff, Arizona. Geez, how much snow's up there?
Yeah, there's snow everywhere in
It's
Portland,
amazing.
in Montana. It's snow everywhere but Phoenix, and let's keep it that way.
Somewhere, I heard Flagstaff, over 100 and some inches of snow already this year, and it's still February. You still got the spring snow coming.
Jeez.
But anyways, Northern Colorado hosts Northern Arizona this afternoon at 1 o'clock tip-off there from Greeley, Colorado. The Northern Colorado Bears, 5-point favorites over the Jacks. 150.5 is the over-under on that one. We're going to step aside here, take our first break of the day. On the other side, Jackson and I get into the NBA, specifically
Let's go.
the new-look Phoenix Suns in the Western Conference. That's coming up next on Fox Sports 910.
Take the points.
All clear.
Powered by the Sportsbook at CAZ Sports Bar in Casino, Arizona continues next on Fox Sports 910 and the free iHeartRadio app.
Arizona's headquarters for Toyotas is Wright Toyota. Hey, Rockford, my friends at Wright Toyota in Scottsdale. You will always find the right deal at Wright Toyota. Wright Toyota has been driving Arizona's home for years with their amazing service, pricing, and great selections. I encourage you to discover the difference at Wright Toyota. Make the right choice, Wright Toyota, just off the 101 on Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard, and always online at WrightToyota.com. The right price, the right selection. Check out WrightToyota.com.
Get ready for the nothing but net action of college basketball on AZTV Channel 7. Every Monday and Saturday, we take you courtside for both men's and women's college hoops. AZTV Channel 7. Check out the schedule at aztv.com.
Are you looking to get into the best shape of your life or looking to offer your son or daughter the best training in Arizona? Then listen up. Dan Minucci for the new Cocoa 5 Performance Center at Bell Bank Park in Mesa. The state-of-the-art Performance Center is a 25,000 square foot facility and is home to sports performance for teams, individuals, combine prep, and professional athletes. And now, the new home where I coach my quarterback. 80 yards of indoor turf and track along with an outside turf workout area, plus tons of squat and bench stations along with world-class training equipment. And they have the best team of coaches in the Southwest led by Olympic gold medal winner Dan O'Brien. If you or your son or daughter are ready to take the next step by gaining more speed, agility, power, or flexibility, then you need to check out the Cocoa 5 Performance Center at Bell Bank Park. Sign up by calling 480-572-0647, and one of their team members will create an individualized program specific to your needs. That's 480-572-0647 or online.
March 11th, I won't be here.
For limited time, if you mention me,
So,
Dan Minucci,
I'll have to,
he'll
like,
give you
send
your
him my
first
picture or
session
something.
on me. That's LegacyPerformanceAZ.com.
Looking for a change in your career? All City Towing is searching for motivated teammates
conflict
to
with
join
another
the team.
job.
Current openings now available in customer service, tow truck operators, yard management, facilities maintenance, and dispatch. Apply online at allcitytowing.com/careers or call 480-833-7278.
But then from then on out, I should be here every day.
2023 World Tour, presented by Jersey Mike Subs. All new. Non-stop action, amazing basketball skills, and more. Don't miss the Harlem Globetrotters at Footprint Center on March 4th. Go to harlemglobetrotters.com.
Where will your
Does Bow even do this show anymore or what?
Anywhere. It's the perfect time of year to take your next adventure off-road in a powerful Chevy.
He just keeps telling me, he's just like, oh yeah, I'm not going to be there today.
Back to Take the
I always have the banger.
Powered by the Sportsbook at CAC Sports Bar in Casino, Arizona.
You're live.
Exclusively on Fox Sports 910.
Monday through Friday, 1 to 4, right here on the station. You hear Rocky Minucci, Jimmy B. And earlier this week, the guys had a poll on their Twitter page, Jackson, and I'm sure you're aware of this since you work with them.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout the course of the week at Rockin' Minucci on Twitter. But they had a poll question out there. Must Kevin Durant play before the playoffs? And your choices were, yes, we got to develop some team chemistry, or no, save him for the playoffs. And, at the surface of it, you're like, damn, you trade for Kevin Durant. You want him. You want him on the court. But the more you think about it, saving him, and I'm not saying that he doesn't play at all down the stretch, but if I'm this coaching staff, I am uber careful with him, because you look at where the Suns are sitting right now. They're at 33 and 28. They're solidly in the fourth position, right? They're ahead of the Clippers, the Mavericks, who are the 5 and 6 teams right now. And I think that, to me, you traded for Kevin Durant not to get the second seed or whatever. You traded for Kevin Durant to win an NBA championship. So you need this guy healthy, and you need him strong for the postseason run. Now, do you need to see him a little bit in the regular season? Of course you do. You want to get him in there and get him in the mix and start to work with the guys. But, you're talking about one of the all-time NBA greats. He doesn't need a lot, right? And you look at what is around him with the core of this team, they can carry the load till he's fully ready to go.
Yeah, he's having a phenomenal year, too. I think people forget about the kind of scorer he is. He's one of the best mid-range scorers, be able to develop a shot of all time. I do want to see him play before the playoffs, not only because he's one of those plug-in players. There's a few of those in the NBA you can plug in anywhere, and they'll just develop, have chemistry with everyone. But I think the biggest thing is can Monty's adjustment of having Kevin Durant in the lineup, having the rotation. I want Kevin Durant to play earlier just for the sake of Monty, because people said the Suns bench wasn't very deep. And the more I look at it, I think it's one of the more deeper benches that we've seen. I mean, Terrence Ross, Damian Lee had good nights last night, 23 and 17 minutes from them. Cameron Payne, huge night from him. You could tell the whole team was energized when he was on the court.
Well, he was so happy to be back too.
14 points, 16 minutes played. I could see his minutes going up as well. And then obviously Chris Paul had a good night. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've got 7 players last night in double digits. You got to be happy.
I think it's a great point about Campaign. To have him back, you could tell his energy was infectious. Whether it was him feeding off the crowd or the crowd feeding off of him, and the rest, whatever it was great to have him back in the lineup. And I think that's where you think about what does it look like for this coaching staff, right? How do you mix and match with your bench? Because the bench looks different now than it did right before the trade deadline, right? Who's going to fill those roles? And I heard somebody describe it as do that dirty work that guys like Mikal Bridges did, right? Who's going to fill that role? That's a question to me, and you got to work on that. And I agree with you, because some of those names that you mentioned there just a minute ago, those are guys that they signed, veteran buyouts and bring them in, right? So yeah, absolutely. But like I said, the Kevin Durant piece is not. Maybe I'm understating this, but it doesn't seem as critical to me. But you look at it, Jackson, and we were talking about this before we went on the air. We're talking about the Suns in the 4th spot right now in the West, and you look up, like we already looked down. You've got the Clippers and the Mavericks behind them. Honestly, neither one of those teams concern me terribly, but whatever.
People say the Clippers just because of their depth, but I think there's so many egos on that team that I just don't see them with Kawhi, with Paul George, with Russell Westbrook. People think Russell Westbrook, now that he's on the Clippers, he's going to be going to
flip a different switch.
Exactly, going to flip a different switch for this Clippers team. The Mavs, obviously with Luka and Kyrie. I think the only team for me in the West that scares me is the Warriors, because they've been there before. They're better in the playoffs. Steph Curry's been hurt. We'll see if he can come back before the playoffs. And then I've heard a lot of talk about how the Lakers are a team that people should be worried about, but for me personally, I'm not.
They got to get to the 10 spot before I even consider that as a concern. But I was saying, you look up. Do you feel worse about the Suns' chances if they don't catch the Kings, if they don't catch the Grizzlies in the standings? Like I said, I'd rather have a confidence about the health of the team as opposed to being the 3 seed instead of the 4 seed. The one caveat, the one exception to that is this Nuggets team. I don't know what to think about them. Going to Denver, that's a hard task to begin with. When you got to go play there. And this is a team that, they started out like a house of fire and haven't looked back. And you talk about health. This is what derailed the Nuggets team the last couple of years. You signed Michael Porter to that big contract, and then I think he tore an ACL or something like that, right? And this is the thing, they're staying healthy. They're 27-4 at home. So the one exception to the rule about the Suns getting out of the West to me is that path through Denver, I don't know what the name of that arena is anymore. It used to be the Pepsi Center, whatever they call it up there. That to me is the one concern. But you look at what Las Vegas thinks, what the odds makers think, what we talk about on this show. As soon as the Suns pulled the trigger on this trade, they went from the 3rd or 4th team out of the West to the favorite out of the West by virtue of that trade.
Yeah, and I think a huge blessing for the Suns team is Josh Okogie. With the timing with Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson leaving, Okogie steps up in the lineup. I believe he's averaging 17, 18 points in the month of February. I don't know if it's the mask that he's wearing on his face or maybe him in the starting lineup, but I remember in the offseason when they started when they signed him and Jock Landell, I was like, who are these guys?
Yep.
But you can see them stepping into the lineup, and I honestly, I'm a big fan of Josh Okogie. I think he needs to be that fifth guy in this lineup. I think he brings so much on the defensive side of the ball. He's a hustler. He's one of the best offensive rebounders when it comes to off of the miss, is what J.J. Redick said last night. When someone misses and he grabs the offensive rebound, puts it back up in the league. But you mentioned that Denver team. They've got 4 players right now that are averaging more than 17 points. And for the Suns right now, when you include Kevin Durant, it's only 3, which is Devin Booker, Ayton, and it is Kevin Durant, obviously. And then Josh Okogie in the last month's been averaging 17 as well. But, I mean, this Nuggets team, they've played together all year. Like you said, they're healthy finally with Porter, Gordon, Murray, and Jokic.
Real quickly before we get out of here, shout out to Jay Crowder. Last night he made his debut.
We have to give him a shout out.
You got to. Look I don't know what happened behind the scenes between him and the Suns. It went sideways, as we all know. He got what they wanted. Suns got what they wanted. They were able to package him up as part of the deal to bring Kevin Durant, and then he ultimately ended up in Milwaukee. But you go back to the run to the finals a couple of years ago, Jay Crowder was a huge part of that. He was a huge part of that. And until, like I said, whatever happened. He was a fan favorite. I don't think there's any question about that. So I'm happy for the guy. He makes his debut last night, scores 9 points, and guess what? You get to see him tomorrow. The Suns and the Bucks.
Ooh, that'll be a good
tomorrow
game. Without Giannis.
Yeah, he tweaked his knee apparently. I think it's on ABC, 11 a.m. tip-off tomorrow morning. We'll step aside here. College basketball coming up next. U of A, ASU from Tucson. We'll talk about it on Fox Sports 910.
Sportsbook at CAC Sports Bar in Casino, Arizona, exclusively on Fox
And your
Sports
life.
910.
Welcome back. Jackson Croft, Mike Gross taking up to 1 o'clock. Ryan Cirk back in studio. And fun fact, only one of us has a national championship ring on this show.
That ring.
That
I
is.
want his autograph. I want a photo with Ryan.
The Thundering Herd.
Jeez.
Anyway, ASU U of A from Tucson. Tip-off just after noon as ASU looks for revenge. They fell to the Wildcats 69-60. That game was played on New Year's Eve here in Tempe. And it's a game that ASU early on, they were in that game, and U of A, I should say, pulled away late. But, we were talking, and you had up earlier bracketology, looking at it. ASU, according to Joe Lenardi, not among the first 8 teams out, meaning, they've got, if they, and I use this term loosely, if they think they're going to make it to the NCAA tournament, they've got an absolute ton of work to do. I mean, now, in their favor, they've got an opportunity against Arizona. And then next weekend, they head to Los Angeles to play the LA schools. They've got USC and UCLA to wrap up the regular season, and then whatever lies ahead of for them in the Pac-12 tournament. But there is no margin for error. And you look at this team and look where it went sideways, Jackson. And you can see it if you look at the schedule. They started the conference play. They lost, as we said, to Arizona to start things off. But then they went on a nice run. They won 4 in a row. And they went on the road and won 2 games at the Oregon schools. And you're like, all right, maybe Arizona might just be better than ASU, but this is a team that might be able to do some damage in the Pac-12. They came home and played UCLA. They were winning that game and lost late. Then they had, I think, in terms of derailing a season, the loss at home to USC might, when you do the postmortem, that might be it. But then they followed that up with losses to Washington and Washington State on the road in a stretch where they lost 5 out of 6. And that's really where I think their chances or their hopes of getting into the NCAA tournament on the basis of their regular season resume kind of went out the window.
I was going to say that loss to UCLA because they were up by 5 at halftime, and then UCLA outscored them 44-27 in the second half.
Yep.
And then you go back to that loss against San Francisco by 37. Was that a key factor in the season? Who knows? That was kind of earlier. But to your point, this is a tough 3 games for ASU here. Obviously tonight against Arizona. Tip-off here in 25 minutes or so. But, yeah, this ASU team, what are you about? What do you want to accomplish? They kind of remind me of that Oregon State team that made the Elite 8. I'm not saying this ASU team is going to make the Elite 8, but this is a team that if they win the tournament, they're automatically in. But if they don't win the tournament, I don't see them coming in to the tournament at all. It's going to be tough to win at least one of these games down the stretch.
Oh, it's
USC. USC's they are win and go home territory. They've won 3 straight. They've won, I believe it was 1, 2, 3, 4. They won 7 out of their last 9 games. They have Utah tonight, and then they play Arizona, ASU. So,
no, hey, look.
Not looking good for ASU.
In these remaining 3 games for ASU, unfortunately, they put themselves in a position where one win won't help them. Like, when you look at, and we're talking about coming down the stretch before they had those bad losses, when they were in the conversation, because Joe Lenardi had them in it at one point, right?
Yeah.
And then they were going back to Dayton, so they were in the play-in games. So what you've done is you've put yourself in a position where just winning one of these 3 isn't enough at this point. And so you've got to get a couple of wins there, and you've got to do some serious damage in the Pac-12 tournament, and that is just a tough expectation based on what we've seen from this team.
You always wonder, too, what happened with Marcus Bagley in ASU, because I'm looking at the stats right now for ASU.
Yeah.
Desmond Cambridge Jr. is leading with 13.7 points, and then it's Marcus Bagley. He's only played in 2 games, but 12.5 points. Whatever happened with him and Hurley? And why can they make it work to get him in a time where they need another scorer offensively for this ASU team? It's just kind of weird to me.
Yeah, no, it is a strange thing. NET ratings, which is one of the computer ratings that they use to evaluate the teams coming in. You've got your quadrants, your NET.
They can make the NIT. Congrats. They'll make the tournament.
We'll worry about that later. Right now, they're number 67 in the NET. And you say to yourself, well, cool, they take 68 teams. Unfortunately, there's a whole lot of at-large teams that are way, way below that number. So you've got to be up in the 40s to feel comfortable right now if you're ASU. The other side of the coin, U of A playing for seeding. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. UCLA and Arizona are solidly in this tournament now, but seedings matter. And I told you, and I mentioned this earlier, I've mentioned on previous shows, I like this Arizona team. I like the talent that Tommy Lloyd has assembled. What I don't like about this team is their focus, is their ability to zero in on a game, every game, and make it important. They've lost 4 games this year. They should not have lost to Utah. They should not have lost to Washington State. They should not have lost to Oregon, and they shouldn't have lost to Stanford. These are games where they were better on paper. The matchup favored Arizona. They bored. They looked disinterested. And then again, I start with the Washington State game. You look up, you're down by double digits against a team that you've got no business being down against double digits. Now, I don't think that they lose their focus based on who's left. They've got ASU. That's your rival game. That's the game that you play every year, and there's bragging rights and that kind of thing. They get that. Then at USC, and then every time they play UCLA, it's a big game, right? So and then it becomes, do they take the tournament seriously when they go to Las Vegas, or do they have the Lute Olson approach, which is, hell, we're in the tournament now. Let me play a game and get the hell out of here and get these guys back to Tucson and focus on the NCAA tournament. That's what Lute Olson always did. He was not a fan of that Pac-12 tournament. His teams knew it, and they would get eliminated and not even care. They'd get ready for the NCAA tournament. So we'll see what happens.
I hope not, because the conference championship, even winning a conference championship, is so big for a program. I think when you look at the goals that every program sets for themselves, it's okay, can we win the Pac-12? Well, first it's, can we beat ASU? Then can we beat the Pac-12? And then can we win a national championship? It's always in that order, whatever program you're in. But when we look across the college basketball scope, there's also other games, Gross. And for those listening last week, Marco talked about how the higher seed every single game so far this season, the higher seed when it comes to playing on the road, if they are not the favorite, they're the underdog heading into the matchup, they win. So I bring that to the podium here today, Gross, because number 8 Texas at 9 Baylor. Baylor's a 4.5-point favorite. Texas is the underdog. Hey, if you're out there and you want to bet on something easily, I would put my money on Texas. And I think Texas is one of the most – I have a weird feeling about Texas.
Right.
Big 12 is a strong conference, which I'm excited to see their conference championship, by the way. They got 8 teams projected to make the tournament this year. But this is a Texas team that overcame the head coach issues. Mm-hmm. They've got some guys. They got Timmy Allen, who's a local kid as well. But 8 Texas at 9 Baylor. They're a 4.5-point underdog. Every single time this year, the higher seed that's on the road, that's the underdog, has won. So if you're listening to this right now, you might want to cash some money, put some money on that Texas money line, or even the 4.5 for the Longhorns.
Look, I agree with you that this. I don't know that I have a good feel for this game today specifically. And who am I to disagree with Marco about the rankings on the road? But longer term, we talked about this at the outset. How do you feel about this Texas team down the stretch, right? And, our team's playing hot as they go to their conference tournaments and into the NCAAs. And then what are the sub-stories? What are the back stories? What are the things that really kind of you sink your teeth into? We love the Cinderella stories in the NCAA tournament. And Texas will never be a Cinderella. But you look at kind of what this team has gone through this year, where their head coach was arrested and subsequently dismissed from his job as the at the helm of the Longhorns. Rodney Terry now is the interim head coach, kind of cleaning up for Chris Beard. And I don't know. Apparently the charges were dismissed against Chris Beard. I don't know what I'm sure there's going to be more to come out of that after the season. But the fact of the matter is he is no longer in charge of the Longhorns basketball program. But here's the thing where that's the type of thing where your team can rally around it and they can use that as that added incentive, as that added motivation to kind of make that run. And so I'm intrigued by this Texas team as they make their run. And as you said, they get ready to tip off against Baylor in about 20 minutes or so. And that'll give you a good opportunity to watch them. They'll never be a Cinderella, as I said. But again, interesting backstory in my mind, and a team that you definitely want to keep an eye on as the NCAA tournament approaches.
Another higher-ranked team that's on the road today, 14 Kansas State at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, one of those bubble teams we mentioned earlier. Oklahoma State's 3.5-point favorite. That might be another one you look at and say, hey, can this Kansas State team with Kevontae Johnson, can they go on the road and beat them? That's another upset underdog pick that I'm kind of circling on my sheet right here, Gross. I don't know. Those are 2 back-to-back. Put them in a parlay. You can win some big money there.
I like that. And I also like, I going back to something you said just a minute ago, Jackson, that I couldn't agree more with. People that know me or listen to the show over the years know that I don't even apologize for it. I'm a homer for Michigan. I don't even apologize, right?
No,
but
don't apologize.
I agree with you about the Big 12 and the quality and the way they play basketball. You can turn it on a random Tuesday night, and Iowa State can be at Oklahoma State, and you're like, damn, that's a good game. Like, very rarely do you turn it on and say, oh, this is a boring game. Like, I'm going to turn off a Big 12 basketball game. So I think if you look at it and you're looking at the Big 12 and you're looking at teams coming out of the Big 12, you're battle tested, and you're going into these hostile arenas night in and night out when you're on the road. And I just think that gets you ready for what the rigors of the NCAA tournament are. In order to win a championship, you got to do it 3 weekends in a row. But you're, I don't know, is it fair to say you're used to that, or that's what the Big 12 does for you, the way they play this regular season? And you look at it and save a couple of teams at the bottom, like even Texas Tech near the bottom. Like, you look at this Texas Tech team, and
they're a good team.
You don't want to see them,
yeah,
right? I mean, maybe Oklahoma, maybe West Virginia. Sorry, Bob Huggins. Maybe you kind of take them out of the equation now.
West Virginia.
Yeah, well, and Oklahoma this year. But other than that, you look at the rest of this Big 12. You don't want any part of some of these.
6 out of the 10 are ranked in the top 25. TCU at 24. When they're healthy, they're scary. They've beaten teams like Kansas. This Big 12 conference too, they've always beaten each other out. It's like a carousel.
Yeah. We'll keep an eye on the Big 12, but I think you hit the nail on the head with that as we watch Texas Tech and TCU. I just said I wouldn't want any part of Texas Tech, and they're losing at home to TCU.
Oh, they're down like 5, 6.
Way to go. All right, we'll step aside here. On the other side, we catch up with our good friend Jeff Hoodzow. That's coming up next on Fox Sports 910.
Take the Sportsbook at CAZ Sports Bar in Casino, Arizona. Exclusively
You're live.
Fox Sports 910.
Welcome back in. Mike Gross, Jackson Groff, coming to you from the CAZ Sports Bar, Casino, Arizona. Already had our breakfast Sammys, so we're doing good today. That's how we start our day at the CAZ Sports Bar. We highly recommend it, Jackson.
Oh yeah.
But as promised, regular listeners to the show know we at this time head out and welcome to the show our good friend, regular contributor Jeff Hoodzow. Jeff, it's Mike and Jackson. How are you today?
What up, Jeff?
What's up, boys? We're watching a little live golf tour at the store. Just watching guys in shorts play golf, so it's pretty exciting. Good stuff.
It's funny you mentioned that because the PGA Tour, they're not allowed to wear shorts; they have to wear pants. So the Live said, "Hey, let the legs breathe, let the dogs breathe." I love it.
I get it. There's some rules of golf that are just so dumb. Hey, Jeff, before we get into the picks, let's talk about what you guys got going on at Best Deal in Town. Check them out online at bestdealaz.com. The Super Bowl in the rearview mirror, but still a great opportunity to upgrade and enhance your home sports viewing. You got lots of basketball. Nothing like summertime hanging out on the couch watching golf. And Best Deal in Town can help people improve their home viewing experience, of course.
Oh, for sure. After the Super Bowl, we start getting a little bit of the madness for March. So college hoops, we got golf, spring training. You know, we got this pitch clock. You know that pitch clock looks great on this 65-inch Samsung OLED I'm watching on right now. So, I kind of wish I was outside and not stuck in here in the office. But we'll see.
Hey, Jeff, I know we joke around about this when Bauer's not here, but he disappeared. He took another week off, so we don't have him here today. But I was we went out of town last weekend, checked into a nice hotel, and they had a beautiful TV mounted on the wall. But they just had the factory speakers, the TVs. Like, it was horrible. I had this great picture, and I couldn't hear a darn thing. But I know like I said, we joke around with Bauer about it, but a big part of the viewing experience is hearing that new TV that you buy. And you guys can, number one, you've got plenty of stuff to offer folks when they want it, but also give them good advice about what type of sound system is going to work perfectly with the new TV that they're buying.
Oh, for sure. We're, we sell sound bars. We get in from different brands. We're also authorized dealers for Yamaha and Denon. So if you want to go with that true 5.1, 7.1 full surround sound, you want different speakers in different rooms, we can handle all that for you.
Awesome. This guy, Jeff, knows his stuff. Well, he also knows sports betting as well. Let's make your picks there, Jeff. We did season 1 of our picks. We're moving into season 2. We're resetting the score, resetting the picks right now. You finished in 3rd place, but we're going to start off fresh here, Jeff. ASU at Arizona, the rivalry. Arizona favored by 13 points. The over-under total at 153.5. Jeff, where are you leading on in this matchup?
So I have a few of my sources that I've been talking to at ASU, and I have a lack of confidence in my own Sun Devils. I'm gonna take U of A. They're 15-1 at home, and I know it's a lot of points that they're gonna have to cover, but I think U of A is gonna win. I think this is gonna be the last time we're gonna have a serious conversation about ASU basketball the rest of the year. And that sounds depressing.
It sucks because, ASU fans, they had a lack of confidence in football, too. Yeah. So now it's basketball. It's just a full year thing for Arizona State fans. But you never know. Maybe they'll upset them today. But St. Mary's at Gonzaga. This is a ranked matchup in the WCC. Gonzaga favored by 5 here. Jeff, who are you leaning towards in this matchup?
I don't think there's a time in my life where I've looked at picks and said, I'm not going to pick Gonzaga. So, I don't know. I don't care who's on Gonzaga. I don't care how many 9th-year seniors they're going to run out there. Give me the Zags.
The Zags he takes with Drew Timme and all those 9th-year seniors. We're going to transition from the college basketball to the NBA now. There's some 2 very high-level games this weekend against some top Eastern and Western Conference contenders. So we're going to start off with the Celtics at Sixers. Celtics are favored by 1.5 points. The over-under total at 225. Jeff, who are you leaning towards, Boston or Philly?
This is a big game for the 76ers because they're 39-19, and you got to win 40 before you lose 20. That's what I've been told about basketball. The Celtics already did that. They're 43-17. I like Boston. I think Boston's going to be my pick out of the East. when we see a Boston Phoenix matchup in the NBA Finals, give me the Celtics on the road.
Okay, and we'll get into those NBA future picks when the time comes, when the playoffs come. We'll all make our predictions before. And then lastly, the Nuggets, the Denver Nuggets, the number 1 seeded Denver Nuggets at the number 2 seeded Memphis Grizzlies. Grizzlies coming off of a tough loss the other night against the Utah Jazz. And they're favored in this matchup by 2.5 points. Over-under is 235. Jeff, who you like in this matchup, the Nuggets or the Grizzlies?
You know, the Grizzlies are just dogs at home. On the road, I would never take them, but I'm a big fan of Jokic, but I'm a bigger fan of Ja Morant. Give me the Grizzlies at home.
Okay, those are Jeff Hoodzow's best deal in town picks right there, Gross.
He's Jeff Hoodzow. Check him out online, as we said, bestdealaz.com, and then head out and see them at the store. Best Deal in Town. They will take care of you for all your viewing and electronic needs. Jeff, great stuff as always. We'll do it again next
2
Saturday.
minutes.
Thanks, boys. If you guys find Bauer, you know, whatever Barstool he's on, knock him off, get him back to work. We all have to put in our time, and I know he gets a little bit of a break, but you know, we got to get him back. We got to get him back in the saddle.
Good luck with that. All right, Jeff, good stuff. We'll talk to you next Saturday as Jeff joins us each and every week to make his picks. And one more time, his website, bestdealaz.com. How bad did I jinx Texas Tech?
They're up 1.
Come on.
141 left against TCU. This Texas Tech team, man. And that's 5-10 in the Big 12, but this is a good Big 12 conference. And that's the team you don't want to play. We just said that, and they're up 1 right now with a minute 41 left.
That's what we were just saying. I was like, holy, I jinxed the heck out of it. That's why I just talked about it.
Then Oklahoma is up 14 against number 23 Iowa State for the Big 12 game. UConn looks like they're about to put away St. John's, And then you got some good games heading to here in 12. Let's go ASU, Arizona.
Yeah, real quickly before we get out of here for hour number 1, Arizona State getting ready to tip off down in Tucson. You said 13. Did that line move
1
up?
minute.
It did move.
It moved up. All right, so we've got to Arizona, 13-point favorites over the Sun Devils. The over-under sits at 154 on that one. So we'll talk about that throughout the course of our second hour. But the Devils and the Wildcats getting ready to tip from the McHale Center in Tucson. Don't forget, coming up at 12:30, our good friend Marco D'Angelo from WagerTalk.com joins us. Check out the website, WagerTalk.com, and Marco on Twitter, at Marco in Vegas. We'll break down a couple college basketball games with Marco and pick his brain about all things sports wagering. We're going to step aside here, take care of some business right around the corner. Hour number 2. He's Jackson Groff. I'm Mike Gross. We'll be right back on Fox Sports 910.
Time for Arizona's only local sports gambling radio show. Take the Points. Powered by the Sportsbook at CAC Sports Bar in Casino, Arizona. Your home for uncensored sports betting opinions, analysis, and advice. The guys have you covered for all the games. Now, Take the Points on Fox Sports 910 and the iHeartRadio app.
Hour number 2. Mike Gross, Jackson Groff coming to you from the CAZ Sports Bar at Casino, Arizona. So happy to be out here. Love coming here every Saturday to do the show. We already had our breakfast Sammys. Got the day started off in the right way, and the wait staff out here is exceptional. Look at you. You got like fresh water every 15 minutes. They're hooking you up.
Yeah, they see that I'm drinking this energy drink right here, and they want to even it out with some water, some hydration.
Stay hydrated.
The lemons. Woo.
Ryan Cirk back in studio, keeping us on air today. And coming up at 12:30, Marco D'Angelo from WagerTalk.com. Follow Marco on Twitter at Marco in Vegas. We'll break down a couple college basketball games with him. Just getting underway the noon games, and so we'll keep an eye on some of those scores. And as these early games go final, I'm looking at you, Texas Tech and TCU. We'll give you an update on that as we wrap up today's show. But as we do, we look at all the sports here, and I'm going to go off the grid, and you're not going to be happy with me. I'm going to do it anyway. Heard Corey McCloskey at the top of the hour talking about the weather here in the Valley. Maybe a little bit of rain today, but it is spring training season, Jackson, as visitors will be coming in and out of the state of Arizona between now and the end of March to see Cactus League baseball. And if the Super Bowl was any indication, we will see lots and lots of traffic, which is great for the economy. Just plan accordingly if you're headed out to one of the games, or if you got to get someplace and you're going to see that traffic. But that means that regular season baseball is about 6 weeks away as we get ready to go. And I'm interested as we look at some of the win total projections that they have out there for the teams. And specifically, obviously, we sit in the National League West, and then the Arizona Diamondbacks are the home team. And you look at this team, frustrating, I know, for fans, but it seems like we're in a regular ongoing rebuild mode. And according to Las Vegas, that doesn't change this year. The numbers that you and I see right here, Jackson, from our good friends at Casino, Arizona, have the win total for the Diamondbacks right now set at 74.5, which puts them about 8 games under 500, depends how that plays out. And, here's the thing. And I know it's frustrating for Diamondbacks fans, but it turns into, in big part, in large measure, whatever term you want to use, a money game when you're in the National League West. You are always competing against the Los Angeles Dodgers. And, that's one of those things that they've got more money than all the other teams combined practically in the National League West. The Padres try to compete with them. And I don't know where I know they've got deep-pocketed owners, and they must be willing to take losses in order to compete. But, it's a frustrating thing for me as somebody that sits here and watches this. But the Dodgers are at 96.5. That's who Las Vegas thinks is going to win the West.
22-game difference there from the D-backs and the Dodgers. Well, the D-backs last year, 74 wins. So that's a very accurate line. They have a 74.5 here. I don't really know too much about baseball. I'm not going to sugarcoat it myself, but I'm excited. Cactus League spring training is always a great time. It's a good vibe, good atmosphere.
Right.
It's always good to bring your wife or your girlfriend or your fiance, or someone to go out there, maybe have a good conversation, watch some good baseball,
hang out in the fresh air.
Exactly. Who doesn't like, especially with the outdoors and the 70s starting to come back, clouds are starting to go away, the sun's starting to peek in. Yeah. It's a vibe. It's a good time.
Yeah, but if you take the win totals that they have, and to your point, we'll get into baseball more as it gets closer. But here's how the experts in Las Vegas have, if you look at the over-under totals, have the National League West shaking out. They've got the Dodgers in first at 96.5 wins. Then they've got the Padres at 93.5 wins. And then you look at the San Francisco Giants, a team that, it's interesting. They're not a big market team, but they're a team that always seems to be there. They're always in the conversation. They're right at 500. 81.5 is where they have the Giants, which would put them in third place. The Diamondbacks in fourth in the National League West at 74.5. And then finally, the Colorado Rockies, another team much like the Diamondbacks that haven't figured out how to compete with the big market team in the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're not willing to go all in like the Padres did. maybe their owner's not willing to take losses the way the Padres are in order to be competitive, but the Rockies at 65.5. So that's how they have the National League West shaken out this year. And if you look at last year's standings, which I believe you have in front of you, that's kind of how the National League West finished, if I'm not wrong. Dodgers, Padres, Giants, Diamondbacks, Rockies. And that's what they think is going to happen again this year.
There you go.
Looking across Major League Baseball, and not surprising, and I think the thing is, and we'll get some experts from Wager Talk on as this gets closer, is a lot of it is two things. What did they do last year, right? And then what did they do in the offseason that either improved or hurt the teams? But the teams that you would expect to be there year in and year out are expected to be there again. The Houston Astros, a team that everybody loves to hate, at 95.5 wins. The New York Yankees at 94.5 wins. Teams, again, you either love these teams or hate them. A team that I think a lot of other teams might want to pattern themselves after if you're not able to go the route of the Yankees or the Dodgers, Jackson, is the Atlanta Braves. They'll spend where they have to, but they also can, take advantage of their youth and parlay that into some talent or develop them all the way to the big club. They've got the Braves at 95.5 wins this year. And the Mets, and I hate this, and if you're in, I'm sorry, but it's that little brother syndrome, right? It's, you're always looking up at the New York Yankees, but the Mets right there at 94.5 wins, right? So, again, interesting to see kind of where they're at now and make your decisions. And you've got 5 weeks of spring training baseball to come up, starting yesterday, actually, here in the Cactus League. I think today in the Grapefruit League in Florida. I'm a Tigers fan.
Uh-oh.
I'm a Tigers fan, and I'm laughing instead of crying because here we go again. They don't even have him winning 70 games, Jackson.
Is Miguel Cabrera still playing?
Miggy's still there. Is
he actually still playing?
This is the swan song. This is
he needs
walking
to retire.
Away. He is. This is it. He's announced his retirement.
Okay, cool.
He is done after this year. Look, the Tigers were already committed to the money, and as a Tigers fan, I get it. I know exactly what you're saying. He got his 3,000th hit. He's getting all the accolades. But if you're a Tigers fan, what are you cheering for? The best thing you had to cheer for last year was Miguel Cabrera as he was setting individual records. I mean, what else are you cheering for if you're a fan of the Detroit Tigers? This team, ever since Mr. Elich passed away, the kids have run it into the ground. The kid, and I don't care. And you know this. You're a huge follower of sports. If nothing else, ownership matters. Your leadership matters, right? Because the Tigers weren't a big market team when Mr. Elich was alive, and then all of a sudden a small market team now that he's passed away. He had a passion for this team, and he knew how to spend money, and he gave money to the general manager and let them spend it. It didn't always turn into championships, but more often than not for the Tigers, when Mike Elich owned them, they were competitive teams. You look at when Justin Verlander was there, and they were playing the Yankees for spots in the World Series. They made it to the World Series. Didn't ever get the championship, but the passion matters. And you look at the Arizona Diamondbacks, our home team. You might not have agreed with every move Jerry Colangelo made, and some would argue that he purchased or bought or whatever you want to say the 2001 World Series championship, but that's the only championship this town has. It's the only championship they have. And Mr. Colangelo, you never, ever questioned what his passion was, what he wanted to do. Ken Kendrick, I don't know. What's his passion? Getting a tax write-off for owning a baseball team? Near as I can tell, that's what he's done. So, ownership matters, right? If you don't have the deep pockets, you got to have a committed ownership team. And I think, again, we talk about the Padres. That's what they've got, right? They're not a big market team, but their ownership is willing to spend the money, and their fans are reaping the benefits.
Yeah, they got Soto. They got that good outfielder. I believe Xander Bogaerts, I believe his name is. I could be butchering his name completely, but MLB, it's coming around the corner. It'll be interesting to see how bettors look at these Cactus League teams, as most of the teams play, those those minor league guys that are trying to make a name for themselves to come up. Some teams will slip in a starter every now and then, but I mean, the Cactus League's about a month. You say a month and a half, I believe.
Towards the end of March, they wrap it up. Yep, and the regular season starts late March, early April. What's your favorite? If I said right now, Jackson, what's your favorite Cactus League stadium to go to watch a game? If you and I are going to go hang out, beautiful day, beautiful March afternoon, we're going to play hooky from the day job.
I thought you were going to say who's my favorite to win the MLB.
We'll do that later.
I was like, woo, man, I mean, I know so much about baseball. So for me personally, just because I live near there, I would have to go with either the Padres Peoria Stadium, or I would have to go the Angels surprise. Surprise. No, sorry, not the Angels surprise. Who's the surprise team?
The Rangers.
Rangers. Yep. Yeah, I like that one too because my high school we had a state championship game in that stadium, so it kind of brings back that nostalgia from that time.
So I'm with you. I love the Peoria Sports Complex, the home of the Padres and the Mariners. I have great memories with the kids when they were younger, sitting out on the grass. I actually got a ball for my daughter one day. Somebody hit a home run and grabbed the ball, and she still has that baseball. So I love going to the Peoria Sports Complex.
83rd and Bell, a lot of good food spots there
Absolutely.
too.
Another one that I've grown to like, and I was telling you during the break, we did right before COVID hit. We had, and I can't remember who I was doing the show with. I was doing the show with somebody, and we were able to do a game from the left field pavilion out there at Scottsdale Stadium. I like it. It's only the Giants are the only ones there. It's a little bit more intimate, friendly confines of, and the way they build that stadium into Old Town Scottsdale there, it's a nice setup there. So those would be my two. If you said, hey, we're going to a game, where do you want to go? You can go to any game you want. Which stadium?
So
Peoria first, Scottsdale second.
Here's my question. I'm kind of new to the baseball Cactus League, trying to educate myself more on it. The D-backs, obviously, their Chase Field is here. Do they play their games at Chase Field, or do they have another stadium they play at?
Right across the way here at Salt River.
Really? So they don't even play in their home stadium?
They and the Rockies right across the 101 here at Salt River by Talking Stick Resort.
I like that.
Check out TalkingStickResort.com. Great deals. You can park over there, take the bus, and then head back and take advantage of everything they got going on at Talking Stick Resort. We'll step aside here, and again, it's college basketball season, NBA. We got the Raptors and the Pistons playing on that far TV over there. I think TCU won. Did TCU actually win?
TCU won by one, yeah. Buzzer beater.
All right. We'll step aside here, but we're going to talk a little NFL on the other side. He's Jackson Croft. I'm Mike Gross. We'll be right back on Fox Sports 910.
Take the Points, powered by the Sportsbook at CAC Sports Bar in Casino, Arizona, exclusively on Fox Sports.
You're live.
Is it your birthday today, Gross?
Not my birthday.
I wish it was mine. Maybe it's the CAZ Sports Bar's birthday today. Because it's popping in here.
Coming up in about 10 minutes or so, our good friend Marco D'Angelo from WagerTalk.com joins us. We're going to talk about a couple college basketball games on the schedule tonight, so stay tuned for that. But big news, Arizona Cardinals they've got a head coach. They've got a general manager. They're starting to round out that coaching staff as they look to put the pieces back together, Jackson. And, again, we're here at the CAZ Sports Bar. The Sportsbook have the Super Bowl futures for next year's Super Bowl in beautiful Las Vegas. The Cardinals right there with the Houston Texans as the long shots to win the Super Bowl next year at plus 20,000. Contrast that with the Kansas City Chiefs. They sit right now at plus 600 to win the Super Bowl next year. But, it's not surprising, right? You look at teams that had openings this offseason, right? 3 of the 5 are the long shots. Colts, Cardinals, and Texans are there. The Carolina Panthers, they're at plus 5,500. I think that's a byproduct of playing.
Which I don't get why people are on the Panthers recently.
I don't either, because they don't have a quarterback so far as anybody knows. But I think part of that is a byproduct of the fact that they play in that NFC South, which is
awful.
It's wide open. You look at that. And then the final team that's in there that had a coaching change, and you might call this early on the Sean Payton effect, and we'll see where this number goes. The Denver Broncos right in the middle of the pack at plus 3,000. I mean, they had a great roster last year. They just had bad coaching and just terrible quarterback play a year ago. Whether or not Sean Payton's able to fix Russell Wilson or not remains to be seen. But the Arizona Cardinals, they round out that coaching staff, or start to round out that coaching staff, as Jonathan Gannon is the new head man. And you look at it, and on the one hand, people are saying, well, geez, you hired another coach to be your head guy without head coaching experience in the National Football League. And while that may be true, you look at this guy's resume, the comparison to Cliff Kingsbury stops at the fact that he wasn't an NFL head coach. This guy has so much NFL experience. I mean, he started out as an intern and worked his way up and around. I mean, we're going on somewhere between 15 and 20 years of experience in the National Football League. Now, I'm not suggesting that necessarily makes you a great head coach. You got to start winning some games. But whatever the concerns that you had about Cliff Kingsbury, you can't compare Jonathan Gannon to Cliff Kingsbury at this point.
Yeah, he's been around in the league since 2007. His first job was the Falcons as a defensive assistant coach and quality control. And kudos to him. He's made his ranks up through the Vikings, Titans, Colts, and the Eagles D coordinator. But I agree with what you said there, Gross. I think this Cardinals team, more than anything, just needs a leader of men, a guy that can go in there with infectious energy, which I've seen from his press conferences and the flight plan that the Cardinals do a great job in doing of behind the scenes. And I'm a big fan of it. Not only a big fan of him being a leader of men, but him saying, hey, I'm going to hire an offensive coordinator. I'm going to hire a D coordinator, and I'm going to chip in my thoughts either or, but I'm going to let them take over each individual side of the ball, because I felt like with Cliff Kingsbury, you saw him controlling the offense, and when the offense wasn't on the field, he was over on the side figuring out what play to do next, which offensive coordinator in the NFL is a very hard job.
Absolutely.
But as a head coach, you need to be a leader of these men, watch what's going on in the field, and oversee everything. So I love that he hired an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, and he can just be that neutral guy to hopefully change the culture in the Cardinals.
Yeah, and I heard Michael Bidwell on one of the local stations this week, and they were asking him about the head coaching hire, of course, and it came up about why they didn't hire Sean Payton.
Which I'm fine with.
And Michael Bidwell said that the issue with Sean Payton coming to Arizona was not how much he wanted to make. It wasn't, hey, and depending on who you believe, he's making $15 to $20 million a year, a ton of money, absolute ton of money. Michael Bidwell said that was not the issue as far as he was concerned. The issue that Michael Bidwell had was the fact that they did not feel like they were in a position to give up draft capital in order to hire Sean Payton. And when you look at what the Broncos gave up, I get it. Like I was absolutely against giving up the number 3 pick to sign or to hire Sean Payton. Like, no way in heck I was going to do that. But that's not what the Broncos gave up. So I don't know. I'm having a hard time syncing this whole thing up in my head. But this roster needs a lot of help. And you need all the draft picks you can get. So whether or not it was the right decision or not, I don't know. But it's been made. But, it's not like the Broncos gave up a number, whatever they ended up where. I don't know where they are in the draft, 4th, 5th, something like that. They didn't give that up. Well, they don't have their pick anymore.
Well, they don't have
couldn't
it,
give it up, but whatever
Seahawks,
it would have been.
They don't have a first-round pick.
Well, they don't have it anymore because the Seahawks got their pick, and then they traded away that additional pick that they got in the Chubb trade in order to hire Sean Payton.
I don't understand why Sean Payton would pick them over anything else.
Maybe that was his only choice.
You have no first-round pick. You got a terrible cap space coming up here. You got Russell Wilson, who's didn't have a great season last year, unless you believe you can change them around. And we mentioned this on Rocky Minucci the other day. Their defense, besides Patrick Surtain, I could not name one starter on that defense. So they've got a lot of work on for Denver. But let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals, because that's the hometown team. They hold the number 3 pick. Right now, according to Draft Network, their primary needs is edge rusher and cornerback, which we've seen corner with Byron Murphy being a free agent. Hopefully they re-sign him. You got Marco Wilson, Antonio Hamilton, another free agent as well. And then some secondary needs. Maybe it says linebacker. I don't agree with them on linebacker. Interior defensive lineman, yes. And then obviously offensive line help as well. Number 3 pick, people have been saying Jalen Carter. With the NFL Combine going next week, look out for Jalen Carter, look out for Will Anderson. But for me personally, it just depends on what Chicago does with that number 1 pick.
It does. And if I'm Chicago and I'm a Chicago fan where that team's at, I get out of that pick. I acquire more picks, and somebody needs that pick for a quarterback. The Cardinals are on the clock at number 3. Cardinals have a choice between Will Anderson and Jalen Carter. Let's say neither one of those are selected when the Cardinals pick. Who are you taking real quick?
I like Will Anderson just because I feel like edge rusher nowadays is the most prominent position that
100%.
you need. You missed out on Nick Bosa with Kyler Murray, which is fine. You missed out on Hassan Reddick and not developing earlier as an edge rusher because he played edge rusher at Temple. So this is kind of your rebound here. Will Anderson's been that guy since his freshman year.
Yep.
Yes, interior defensive lineman is very special, but a guy like him you cannot miss on. And for this draft, I think edge rusher, it's Will Anderson, and there's a huge gap when it comes to guys like Tyree Wilson, guys like Nolan Smith, and other guys. Will Anderson is that difference maker. He's that guy that's going to come in and start day one, and like Aiden Hutchinson did for the Lions.
Your 3 most important positions in the 2023 NFL. Your quarterback, of course.
Yep.
Your tackle who protects your quarterback's back.
Left tackle.
And then your edge. Those are your 3 picks. I agree with you. You got to go edge if you're the Arizona Cardinals with that number 3 pick.
Where else do they go if they're picked ahead of time? Like if Carter and Wilson. And
I don't see a scenario in which they're both gone.
Yeah,
I don't. But if they're both gone, then you see how quick you can get out of there. That's because at that point it's going to be a free for all for the quarterbacks, and you might be able to make a deal if both Carter and Anderson are gone. I see.
Who are some teams real quick before we get to break that you think will trade up and get a quarterback that need a quarterback in that top
team
10?
that you mentioned a minute ago? Carolina's got to think about it. Carolina, absolutely. I mean, because they're in a division that's winnable. But who right now? If the season started right now, who's the starting quarterback for the Panthers?
PJ Walker.
How do you feel about
Sam?
that? We're going to step aside here. On the other side, we head up to Las Vegas and say hello to our friend Marco D'Angelo. It's coming up next on Fox Sports 910.
Who's a lock? Who should you stay away from? Take the Points, powered by CAZ Sports Bar's resident handicapper. Marco D'Angelo of WagerTalk.com joins us now.
You're live
on Fox Sports 910.
Midway through the first half in Tucson, Arizona leads Arizona State 21-20. But as you just heard, it's time of the day. We head up to Las Vegas. Say hello to our regular contributor, friend of the program, Marco D'Angelo from WagerTalk.com.
Marco!
How are you guys today?
That's good. I had to turn down my volume for that because we've been getting complaints about me being too loud there, Marco. So hopefully it was loud enough for you.
Yeah.
Yes, it was fine.
One of these days you'll be able to hear him all the way in Las Vegas, Marco. Hey, great to have you on. College basketball. We're here at the sports book, and the TV's blowing up. People in line wagering on their games. Lots of great games as we're playing for seedings and brackets and all that kind of good stuff as March Madness approaches. And we've got a couple good games that you've circled we're going to talk about right here, right now. First up in the Big Ten, got a matchup between two in-state rivals, the Purdue Boilermakers and the Indiana Hoosier. Purdue, one of those, man, they're not a very sexy team, but they're just good. They're solid, and they're 6.5-point favorites over the Hoosiers right now.
Yeah, Purdue, they're sitting, 24-4 on the season, and you look at it, that's impressive. But if you look, they've lost 3 of those 4 games in the last couple of weeks. And what happened? Well, it happens in college basketball all the time. You get that number 1 ranking, and you got that bullseye on your back, and everybody comes looking for you. And guess who was the team that knocked them off that perch? It was this same Indiana team just a couple of weeks ago at Indiana. They won the game 79-74. You know the rivalry with Purdue and Indiana. Both programs, especially Indiana, rich with basketball tradition. So I am looking for the revenge spot here. And I'm also looking at, we always talk about scheduling and bad spots, good spots. This is a bad spot for Indiana. Now, not saying that they're not going to be up for this game. Absolutely they are. But what I'm talking about is this is going to be their 4th road game in the last 5 games. And during that 5-game stretch, which has basically been 2 weeks, they've played in 5 different cities. They haven't played, a back-to-back home game. It was 2 road games, then a home game, then 2 road games. So they've been all over the place, and that takes its toll on a team. Then you couple that with the fact that Purdue is playing with revenge, and now that Purdue has gotten that, they're not number 1, they're not carrying that weight of number 1 on their shoulders, they can play free. Now, they got the last game they got to win, but let's not get excited about it. They rolled over Ohio State 82-55. Guys, if you've watched Ohio State this year, they are just horrible. Worst team in the Big Ten by far. But it's still a win. You guys know I have horses. Sometimes you got to drop a horse down in class. He doesn't know that he's playing, that he's racing against the lesser foe. It builds the confidence, and they got that convincing win, and I think they get another convincing win tonight. Couple that with the fact that Indiana just 2-8 against the spread on the road. I'm going to go ahead and back Purdue here. We're going to lay the points with them. The line is at 6.5. It's actually opened up at 7.5 and has come down as the public does want Indiana. I'm not buying it. I've got Purdue winning by 12 for our first play today.
All right, Marco, let's make our way to the western part of Arizona, part of the U.S. My brain is going everywhere right now. St. Mary's at Gonzaga, both ranked in the WCC conference. Gonzaga favored by 5 here. Gonzaga, a.k.a. hopefully, makes its way to the Pac-12 here shortly. I'm in favor for that. But in this matchup, who do you like, and what is your analysis on this game?
Yeah, this might be the first time we've ever talked about St. Mary's on the show. And I'm looking forward to this game, guys. These are 2 very good basketball teams. Now, everybody knows about Gonzaga, the success that they've had over the recent years and the runs that they've made in the Big Dance. But St. Mary's has been, in the shadow. They've been the second best team in this conference for a very long time. And every year when they come to the conference tournament, which happens to be held here in Las Vegas every year, it's generally Gonzaga and St. Mary's in the finals. So tonight, the ESPN cameras are there, big game. I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be a dogfight. This is the classic. You've got offense versus defense. St. Mary's is very happy playing a half-court game. Gonzaga, you know what they want to do. They want to roll up and down the floor. But for me, what I am looking in this game, Gonzaga's been good for so long. This edition, although they are good, I think they are just a notch below what we've seen the last couple of years out of Gonzaga. With that said, this is the best St. Mary's team that we have seen in recent years. They won the first meeting. It was a dogfight at home. They got the win in that game, 78-70, and they got the win, and they only shot 25% from three-point range. I expect that to improve tonight in this one. And you guys love when I dig deep and find a stat for you guys. Here is a angle. And this is all college basketball. It's not just to these two teams. All college basketball for the last 5 years. As I said, St. Mary's loves defense. If a team has held an opponent to 65 points or less 4 straight games, which St. Mary's has, and they're playing a team that has scored 80 points or more 4 straight games, blindly playing that angle, which applies here, over the last 5 seasons, it's only happened 26 times. 22-4 to the Dogs, St. Mary's.
I love it.
We're going St. Mary's tonight. I always say, give me the better defense, getting points. That's where I'm at. I'm going to look forward to this one. It'll be. I hope I get to see some of it because it's a hockey night in Vegas tonight as well. Pretty big game here in Vegas tonight.
Keep your priorities straight, Marco. Absolutely. He's Marco D'Angelo. Follow him on Twitter at Marco in Vegas. The website wagertalk.com. Marco, real quickly before we let you get out of here. Jackson and I were kicking around a term, we're just learning this stuff, and we love wagertalk.com, your sports betting 101. Tell us about the concept and the idea of a round robin bet. And I'm sorry to throw this at you kind of out of the blue, but it came up and we were talking about it. What is a round robin bet? And what are your thoughts on those?
Well, a round robin bet is just a way of, I'll throw maybe so listeners would understand more. If you go to the racetrack and you box 4 horses and an exacta, it gives you all the possible combinations. If you box 1, 2, 3, 4, for example, if it runs 1-3 or it runs 2-4, you've got it covered. And what a round robin does is give you all of those different parlays instead of having to individually call them all out. Okay. It gives it to you in one bet. Now you can do a round robin. Generally, most people will play a round robin with 4, 5, or 6 teams, and when they go to the window, they will say, give me 2-way, 3-way, or always, and that'll give you all the combinations. If it's a 4, you'll get all the 2-team parlays, you'll get all the 3-team combination parlays, and then you'll get one parlay at the end that has all of the teams in that round robin, and it's a way of spending less money to try to win more money. But be careful when you do a round robin, you end up with you can go up with 4 teams and end up with 10 or 12 parlays. So lower your amount. Don't go up there and say, give me a 4-team round robin for $100 because you're going to get a big play there. Make them for smaller amounts and you get all of those parlays in one.
I love it.
That's some good insight right
really
there.
Good info.
And I want to mention too, Marco, last week you mentioned, I believe this stat, and I could have butchered it, but correct me if I'm wrong, but you said this season that the higher ranked team that goes on the road, that is the underdog, has won, I believe you said, every single game so far this season for college basketball, and one on the
not every. It's 30. It's going into yesterday. It was 31-16 on the season, and what it is if you have a ranked road team playing a unranked home team, and the home team is the favorite, is what it is. And there's a couple examples. There's a few of those today. One of them is Oklahoma State that just tipped off. That was one of them. And there was another one today, and I'm blanking on it right now. But just look at the rankings. It's easy to look at the top 25 rankings. If you see a team on the road and you see the other team's not ranked at home, that is a play that has worked this year a lot. The other one is North Carolina.
I was about to mention that.
Tonight.
Yep. North Carolina is
North
favored
Carolina
by 4
tonight.
against Virginia. And then the other one, too, I know it wasn't a ranked team, but Texas was an underdog against Baylor right now. They're up 5, so that's another game to look into. Very interesting. Marco's always got those great stats for us. We love to have him on every single Saturday.
Hey, Mark.
I love sharing the knowledge with you guys, and hey, you guys are coming around. You'll be having March Madness in a couple weeks, and I don't think it'll be quite what it is here in Vegas, but it's still going to be a great time. You guys with sports betting now, you've got to just have the Super Bowl a couple weeks ago, and fun times. It makes it a lot more interesting watching the game.
Oh, absolutely, Marco, and you nailed it too. You and I were talking. I don't know if it's on the air or off air. You and I were talking. And you said, the first year of legalized sports wagering at the location of a Super Bowl, and the numbers that came out of this Super Bowl for Arizona were staggering. It just, people coming from out of town, maybe they weren't able to do it wherever they came from or first time, whatever it was. But to your point, you nailed that as well. Off the charts.
And I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but for the first time, Vegas, Nevada did not break the previous record. We kept, every year we kept doing more numbers and more numbers. This was the first year that we went down significant, and it was twofold. I said, one was our neighbors in Arizona, because before you guys had legalized betting, how many, were driving to Vegas Super Bowl weekend? So we lost that money, and then unfortunately, I'm sure you saw one of the major sports books here in town. Their app went down on Super Bowl Sunday.
Somebody,
and that was a nightmare.
Somebody got fired. somebody in the IT department got fired.
Not good.
Yeah. Hey, Marco, as always, good stuff. Again, we'll encourage our listeners, give you a follow on Twitter at Marco in Vegas, and visit the website, bookmarketwagertalk.com. Marco, good stuff. We'll do it again next Saturday.
All right, guys, let's cash some tickets.
Absolutely. Hey, real quick update before we head to a break from down in Tucson, Arizona State and Arizona. They're knotted up. Check that. ASU just goes up by 2, 33-31. The Devils lead the Wildcats. They're under 6 minutes in the first half from Tucson. We'll keep an eye on that.
Is it time to panic? If you're an Arizona fan? I don't think so. I was just kind of throwing that out there because, some people panic early. There's two halves in basketball, people.
You worried me about that. 33-33 now. We'll step aside here, but more to come on Fox Sports 910.
Take the point.
All clear.
Powered by the sport. Back to Take the Points, powered by the Sportsbook at CAC Sports Bar in Casino, Arizona, exclusively on Fox Sports 9.
You're live.
Closing time.
Hey, what's up by Ryan Surk today? What's the line in here? You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. That's not the case here. We're done after this segment, but you can hang out here at the CAZ Sports Bar as long as you want. They're going to be here as long as the games are on. Your chance to get up there at the window, put a wager on some games. They stay until the games are over. Cash those tickets, and the self-service kiosks are available 24/7. Thanks again to Marco D'Angelo from WagerTalk.com for joining us in our last segment. In case you missed it, a couple of college basketball games he picked. He likes Purdue over Indiana. And he likes the defense by the Gales, St. Mary's Gales, over Gonzaga tonight in Spokane. That doesn't happen very often where people pick against the Zags, but he likes St. Mary's, and he pinned it all on their defense.
Which I was shocked by, too. They're a good defensive team, but we'll see how they can do against a Gonzaga team that's not a disappointing regular season, I don't want to say, because they're still ranked, but people thought they were going to be ranked higher, obviously, preseason.
Well, Gonzaga is one of those. They've built that brand. Right, and
brand of losing in the tournament. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that regular season brand, right? Like where you have such high expectations. 37-37, Arizona State, Arizona. They're tied with 3:11 to go in the first half. And just to refresh your memory, Arizona went off in that one as a 13-point favorite, Jackson. So obviously we won't be here for the conclusion of the game, but we'll keep an eye on the numbers. And we'll revisit that a week from today when we reconvene here at the CAZ Sports Bar as both Arizona and Arizona State play their regular season finales next Saturday in Los Angeles. And I'm sure we'll talk in great detail about that. But this is the time of the show where we do our picks and we get them locked in. And as you said, football season is in the rearview mirror. So we're starting kind of our second season of picks. We'll start with the cleans. Who won the first part? Was that did Bauer win it?
We did a season one. We're obviously resetting it because, with college basketball, with NBA. Bauer won, and then you got second. Hud's out third. I had a really terrible season one, but I'm hoping season two, with my experience now with the show, learning how to prep, learning from obviously, the great Mike Gross right here, that I can turn it around and make a good second half season in the season two here. We also added Ryan Surk to the picks as well.
Our national champion.
But let's get into the picks. Obviously, ASU at Arizona. We made our picks in before the game started. So for people out there that are saying, we put them in the lineup way before. Everyone went Arizona except for Gross. And I'm wondering why you chose ASU. Was it because there was too many points here?
Yeah.
What is your feeling?
No, that was it exactly. When I looked at Arizona State, I'm like, when I did my pick, it was at 12. It bumped up to 13 right before tip time. And as I said, look, this is a really, really good Arizona team. Says Captain Obvious. Like that's not an earth-shattering statement, but it's a rivalry game. You got a double-digit game. They played tight the first game in Tempe. Excuse me, it was a single-digit game there as well. Arizona will win this game, I think. I don't agree with Manuch. I'm not on upset alert. I'm not freaking out like you warned the Arizona fans to do. But 13 is a lot in a rivalry game. This is not a terrible ASU team. For all the disappointment we're talking about with this team, probably not going to make the tournament this year, Bobby Hurley's got a pretty darn good team, which probably makes the way the season's playing out all that much more frustrating for ASU fans. But I take Arizona State in those 13 points, but I believe Arizona will win the game today.
All right, the second game here is ranked St. Mary's, which they are ranked 15 at 12 Gonzaga. And we don't even have to get into this. We all picked Gonzaga. I understand what Marco's going here with St. Mary's with the points, but it's just tough, like Hoodzow said earlier, to bet against Gonzaga at home.
And look, when you're talking about Arizona State, and you've got a double-digit number, you give yourself a little wiggle room. You can talk yourself into something. When you're talking about numbers, and I believe it's 5 points now for St. Mary's as an underdog at Gonzaga. It
has moved to 6.
It's gone to 6. Even there, I need to see that closer to 10 before I do the same thing that I did with Arizona State.
And then we're going to go into the NBA. Now, the NBA, we have some conflict here, so we'll get into, Ryan's side, my side, and Gross's side on this one. The Celtics at the Sixers. Bauer, myself, and Hoodzow went Celtics here, and I like the Celtics here. Here's why. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, This duo, they got a lot on the bench side. They've been playing well, and they're obviously the number 1 seed, the best team in the league right now. And I think they keep going, building that chemistry. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. I like the Celtics team on the road against the Sixers. Gross, why are you going? You're going the opposite way.
I'm going the opposite way, and similar to what we talked about earlier when we were talking about the Suns. You look at these teams jockeying for position and getting to the point where they're settling in for the postseason. I mean, obviously, when you look at the Eastern Conference, you add in Milwaukee to the conversation. These are the top 3 teams: Milwaukee, Boston, and Philadelphia in the Eastern Conference. Clearly, I think Boston is the superior team, but I still think that Philadelphia is in that conversation. You got a home game, and again, you're playing for those seedings. I think this is, if you're going to do it, this is the time you're going to do it and try to make a little bit of a run. So just more of a gut feel than anything else. Yeah. But Sixers, Celtics, it's a classic rivalry in the Eastern Conference, and I think it'll be a good one. But I think the Sixers take it at home.
And then, Ryan, you're going Sixers as well. Are you kind of leaning towards what Gross is saying, or is your gut – is it your gut feeling, or do you have some analysis behind this Sixers pick?
I mean, I just think that the Sixers at home, they're not the better team, obviously, but I think that just because it is a rivalry game and they're at home, as we've mentioned, I just think that they have the upper edge and that they'll end up victorious tonight.
Yeah, that is a good point. They did beat the Grizzlies the other night. They were down 11 with 5 minutes left, came back at home. So the next game here, I
was just going to say, and Jeff, when he was on, Jeff Hutzow, when he was on with us earlier, not only smart about home entertainment systems, but you talk about the difference between certain teams at home and on the road, right? And you look at the Sixers, I think that you can say that. In this game that we're getting ready to talk about here, both these teams fit that exact bill.
Nuggets at Grizzlies. Grizzlies favored by 2.5 here. The Nuggets, the other night, they played the Cavs, and they were the underdog there, beat the Cavs on the road. I'm going Nuggets. I just think this team is playing really well at a good time. They got so much chemistry offensively with Jamal Murray. They've got KCP. They've got Reggie Jackson they got from the buyout market. They got Aaron Gordon, who's hurt, but he'll come back. I like this Nuggets team. I think they're a very good team, and we'll see how they face up against this Grizzlies team that's also young, too. Bauer's going Grizzlies. Hudzow's going Grizzlies. Gross, who do you like in this matchup?
I like the Grizzlies as well. I mean, and Denver is, to me, one of those teams. And I think this is the story of the West, right? When you look at these teams, the difference between home team, how they play at home and how they play on the road, Memphis is under 500 away from their home arena. Right, but they're at home tonight where they're 24-5, and the Nuggets they're a 500. They're an average team on the road this year, and you look at that gaudy record that they're 42-18 right now, Jackson, but they are 500 away from home, and I think that all these teams in the West, you look at that, and I think this is really going to be a factor as they move through the playoffs. So that making sure or securing home court advantage as far as you can is going to be the challenge. You contrast that with those teams in the East. The top 3 teams in the East, they win at home and they win on the road. Part of that is there's some crappy teams at the bottom of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
But again, you still, winning on the road in an 82-game season, it's a mindset, right? Because you got load balancing, all this other stuff that goes on. So, anyways, that's why I like Memphis tonight over the Nuggets, the mere fact that it's in Memphis.
Ryan, Nuggets, Grizzlies, who do you like in this matchup?
I'm liking the Nuggets. I'm sorry, Gross, but I got to go against you because I just think that the Grizzlies painted an unnecessary target on their back ever since Morant went out and said, oh, yeah, we're fine in the West. He did this to himself. And the Nuggets have really been slept on by the media. I think they're going to go out there and prove why they are one of the favorites in the West.
That is true. That's a great point there.
I think your point about the media and how they're looking at this Nuggets team is 100% correct, Ryan. Go ahead and watch ESPN during the day when they have their NBA shows and things like that on. You don't see a lot of conversation about this Nuggets team. And the one difference, and I mentioned it earlier, this is a team that is finally healthy. You look at the last couple of years, you've had Joker as the in that winning or in the MVP conversation. He's got his cast of characters with him, and so they stay healthy. They should be talked about, and B, you should keep an eye on them. Real quickly, as we wrap it up, 46-42, Arizona State over Arizona from Tucson. About 18 seconds left to go in the opening half, so it's going to be a good second half. Now that we're done, you can turn the radio off and flip over. I believe it's on CBS 5 here locally in the Valley. But don't forget, Rock and Minuch with Jimmy B, Monday through Friday, 1 to 4 right here on the station. And we want to send our thanks out to everybody here at the CAZ Sports Bar Casino Arizona. Love coming out here every Saturday. And we'll be back next Saturday at 11 a.m. For Jackson Groff, for Ryan Cirk back in the studio, Mike Gross, Mike Bauer. We'll see you next Saturday right here on Fox Sports 910.
All clear. Good job.